Good morning to everyone here in North America and afternoon to all of our friends in Europe. Welcome to the North Sails Star Upwind, Downwind boat setup trim seminar. Glad to have everybody here today. As we go forward here, I want to introduce our speakers. First, I'm Alan Terhune from North Sails here in Annapolis, and I have two excellent star experts here with me today. Eric Doyle in San Diego. Eric, are you here?
Morning, Alan. How you doing? You guys hear me all right?
Doing awesome. And Markus Koy from North Sails in Germany. Markus, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Hi, Alan. Happy to be here.
Well, afternoon for you, I guess.
Yeah, it's afternoon here.
Hope everyone's doing well. So before we get into it, I just want to remind everyone that it's super important to support the STAR class and pay your class dues. So when you have a chance, if you've not class, go to starclass.org and pay your dues. I know they'd be appreciative, and it helps keep the class running, and it's something we all care about and love, so it's really good. So if you have a chance, hop to it. So anyway, we're going to go forward here and talk about our topic for today, which is boat setup and upwind and downwind sail trim. So here we go. We're going to talk about upwind and downwind, and here's a picture of Lowell North here sailing, we think in the 1960s. We thought it was Eric, but Eric's not quite that old, I don't think. He might be.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
But
it's before my time.
I don't know. They hike harder than people do today, though, it looks like. So
they work hard at it. Yeah, back when men were men, as the old guys in San Diego used to tell me. They didn't have these wussy harnesses and stuff like that. They pumped upwind. We didn't have bailers and stuff like that. It was great. It's great here. But it's great. Yeah, it's a great picture. Lowell North, 4-time world champion, 4 times second place, and he won as a crew when he was 15 years old. He's just a legend in our class, starter of our great company there.
Yeah, I think Markus is a little bigger than the crew he has in that photo.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, it might be. But looking at the shape of the jib, it's also quite a flat profile, so they might
have been okay.
Might have been all right.
Let's get to it here. Eric, why don't you talk to us a little bit about the sailing and setup and sail trim and bring us through some of this.
Yeah, what we want to do today, this is the second of our webinars. The first one we really went in detail about what we do before we put the rig in the boat and go sailing, and a lot of measuring and setting up and tweaking, and then, you know, it's easy to get stuck in that and do a lot of it, but you got to just get out on the water and start doing some practicing, and you know what we strive for, what we're all missing right now. You know, we want to focus when we get out there. First thing we want to think about is you know, there's 3 really important things for going upwind, which is the helm, you know, the heel angle, and just the whole overall balance of the boat. So, you know, in the world of upwind sailing, the way I break it down, there's 2 ways, right? You're either underpowered or you're overpowered. You know, it's light air, and you're trying to get the crew over the side. You're trying to power up and get to max hiking and everything, or you know, the Star has a lot of power, big sail plan. So very quickly, we're overpowered, and we're trying to keep the boat balanced nicely, keep it going forward without too much helm, and have enough power to get through the chop. And so that's kind of where we're going to start. You know, how do we accomplish that? What are the best ways? You know, the best thing to do is to have a tuning partner. You know, it's sailing by yourself is nice to get back in the boat if we haven't been in a while and we want to look at the mast a little bit, but you know, to really, we can always make the boat feel good when we're sailing by ourselves. It can feel good. We're upwind, we're like, oh gosh, the boat feels great. It has a pretty nice motion, but you know, to know if we're really fast, it's best to have a tuning partner, you know, someone you can go out with and do some training. Wouldn't you think so, Markus?
Yeah, for sure. And and even better if you know your training partner, like you know what speed you expect from him, or you know what speed he is at. That makes you that gives you the position to judge much more what is happening out there. So if you can choose, I would always go for a boat which is a little bit faster than me, or same speed. If you don't find anybody like that, you could also take somebody who's not on your speed, but you just need to sort you in there, or have the understanding of what's going on. And then it's about to go out there, like talk to the other guy or to the other team, what you want to do and how you want to do it out there. And that's like something like the setup routine, how you set the boats up, like 3 to 4 boat lengths apart, and the boats should have the leeward boat should be a little bit forward, and then you can also like talk something through that one boat is for half an hour able to change something and can change something, and the other one should not do any changes in that period. So then you make sure at least that only one boat is changing, and you always maintain the speed of 1-0 boat. If both boats would change, you run the risk at least that both boats could get slower also in this setup, which is not a good idea, I guess. And then is something, I mean, track the compass, Eric. I mean, I can't see it if I'm hiking, but I would ask you as a helm, hey Eric, we just started, give me the compass bearing. And then you can judge from there actually when you thought you had a good speed, but all of a sudden you're falling back and you lose height. So maybe you're on a header and the leeward boat is just an advantage because of the wind change. So it's good to have the bearing involved and monitor it a little bit. But it's not important to sail the ships, but you just need to know what happens when the wind changes and relate that to your speed.
Yeah, I like to, I like having a good tuning partner, like to set up, you know, if I'm the weather boat, I'm looking through my main window and I sight right down and I'm looking down the transom of the boat to leeward. And that way, you know, both boats are even on crosswind. We you know, we're not affecting each other's wind, but we're getting the wind at the same time. You know, it's hard to tune properly. You know, you don't want to be on the other guy's wind. You don't want to be on his lee bow. It's tough to do. It's best to do on a nice sea breeze day. If it's very shifty, it's hard to tell if you're gaining or not. But on a sea breeze day, we'll start the test. I'll look down the boat's transom. I'll say, okay, you know, we're good to go. The other skipper might look at us. You just give him a wave or a nod and say, okay, here we go. You tell your crew he's ready. He's got the jib trim perfect. And then I'll make a point to call out the compass bearing and say, hey, we're sailing 210. And then we know during the test what happened, because if we gain on the bad side, then hey, we're going really fast. But if we lose on the bad side of a shift, you know, that's a little harder to tell who's going faster. And then we run the test 5 to 7 minutes. No, you know, you can go longer, but it's good to switch sides too. If one side's favored or the other side's favored, we switch very quickly. And that's how we really get consistent results. And now we'll start talking about how we set up the sails a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's a good lead in to go to Markus here and talking about the jib, right? It seems like something we don't necessarily talk enough about, but you know, clearly you're the leading guy when it comes to this stuff. So
the crews don't tell us, man. They're like, nah, it's
how would a helmsman know? How would a helmsman know how to set up a jib? I mean, there's no way. But anyway, talking about the jib, I mean, it's in relative, it's a small sail. But I think it's still, or no, not still, it is super important to have the right settings, even if the area is smaller. But if the jib would be set up completely wrong, that would result in really bad boat speed. And so when you leave the harbor, it's always good to have something like a standard setting, like you have a mark on the halyard, you have a mark on the Cunningham if you want to, or you refer to a measurement like the tack, how much is that up from the deck. You could say 2 centimeters would be good all-round setting. And you go out with that setting, and then you start to adjust it once you're out there and know what the conditions are. In general, I like to trim the jib, I mean, maybe most of the times a little bit more in than the mark on the spreader. But saying that, you can't over trim it. I mean, if the top telltale of the jib is not flying, that's too much, and that will slow the boat down. So always monitor the telltale and adjust it. See, maybe you can sheet in a little bit, or you have to ease it a little bit. And then, of course, you can look at the luff. If you want to have a little bit of wrinkles, if you want to have it straight, depends a little on the conditions. For example, if it's very choppy, I would tend to have the jib cunningham or the luff of the jib a little bit tighter to get the draft forward. Or if it's a little bit flatter and light, maybe some more wrinkles is what you want to go for to flatten out the entry of the jib a little bit.
So Markus, one of the things I've thought about a bunch, and maybe you have some rules of thumb, is the height of the jib off the deck and how you set that up, or what rules you use for that.
I mean, the general rule for it would be the lighter it is, the higher I would fly the jib off the deck. Saying that, it should always stay connected with the foot to the deck. I mean, you can't lift the whole jib off the deck, then that is not good for the aerodynamics there. But I would go up to 5 to 6 centimeters, maybe 7, and down nearly all the way, or 1 centimeter with the tack. If you talk measurement from the deck, that's the range you could work on.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, maybe just real quick, Alan. One thing I'd add, it is hard for the crews sometimes to see the how tight it's sheeted, and the spreader window in the main, it's lined up for the skipper when he's hiking, so he can look up and see it. And we always try and confirm with each other, my crew and I, on how tight or how loose the jib is trimmed. We come out of a tack or something like that, and obviously we've got it just a little bit eased, and the boat gets up to speed. And my crew's waiting for my call for when I feel the boat is ready to go. Maybe there's some big waves or something like that, and I'll say, okay, trim it in 2 clicks. That's kind of our key word, which is just, whatever, about a centimeter or maybe 2 centimeters. And I'm looking at the window because I have the best view, because I'm back and I can see if the telltale's right on the leech. And it's really good to have the feedback between the skipper and the crew. And then when I'm at max trim on the main, it's nice if both sails come in together after the tack, because we come out, they're both eased a little bit, the boat's getting up to speed, and I say, okay, let's go final. We both trim in together, and it keeps the balance of the boat going. So it's it's the crew's responsibility, but you got to work together on it.
So just before we move on, I mean, the jib's pretty high aspect, right? Pretty tall. So do you guys think you need fine tuners for the jib sheets on this boat? Is 2 to 1 enough? I mean, what do you guys think is right for doing it proper?
I use a 2 to 1.
You can't answer that, Eric. You can't answer that.
That's what I was saying. I was going to give you the opportunity to tell me how wrong I've got it, Markus, because I just use 2 to 1, and I want to know what's right.
Yeah. Well, a direct answer on that would be maybe you're not strong enough then. But no, actually, without any funny stuff, I mean, it's 2 systems, the 2 to 1, and then the single jib sheet with a fine tune. If you ask me, I always like the single jib sheet with a fine tune, just because not having so much rope lying around in the cockpit when it goes down on the downwind. You have a lot of rope. If that is not clear, if there's a knot, the fuck up potential is for me a little bit higher with a very long sheet. And I kind of like the direct handling in the tack. You don't have to pull so many meters. So I'm a big fan of single jib sheets with fine tune, but you need the fine tune, that's for sure.
Right.
But I know a lot of teams who are doing 2 to 1. Which is maybe in strong wind, downwind, a little advantage. So you don't have to pull that much.
That's my problem. I can't pull the pole back when it's really windy, Markus.
Yeah, I thought so, Eric.
I'm getting old, dude.
So, Eric, you were talking about it before about how basically there's 2 stages of the boat. You're either overpowered or underpowered. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about this, how to get the boat up to power in light air, right? What the goals are and what you do to do that.
Yeah. So our goal in light air is to get the boat up to max power. In other words, we want it to heel over. We want to get the crew over the side. We want to get hiking. If we don't want to keep our foot off the gas pedal, and we want to. So the power is us hiking against it, you know, using the riding moment of the boat. So the starboat has a lot of sail area, so we power up quite quickly. But you know, in 4, 5, 6, 7 knots, you know, what do we do to get the boat up to speed, to get the crew over the side quicker? You know, we need to be able to trim the sails a little fuller, you know, and the way we do that, we use a little bit less rake. You know, we take a little bit off the shrouds. You know, I always try to leave the dock at 23.5. That's my base shroud tension that we talked about in the previous webinar. So I leave the dock at that. And if we're not getting out over the sides, then we're probably going to ease. We're probably going to take a full turn off the cap shrouds and a little bit off the lower too, so that we can sag the mast in the middle and give the sail a little more grunt, you know. And then we don't use any Cunningham. We have the outhaul a little slacker. We try and sheet pretty firm to get the crew over the side. If we're really light air, we usually don't use too much lower check stay because it makes the forestay too tight and it depowers the jib. But if we're right on the edge, we're sitting up on the rail and we're just trying to get the crew over, then we're gonna firm up the lower check stay, because it's faster to have the crew over the side and the forestay a little tight than it is to have a saggy forestay with a powered up jib but no crew hiking. The crew's the horsepower on the boat, the main, and getting the crew over the side. So if you know, some of the telltale signs I look for if we're sailing along and we're struggling to get the crew over the side and everybody else has their crew mini hiking, you're like, uh-oh, we've got a problem here. We're racing the boat underpowered. If, you know, ideally your crew's the first guy over the side in you know, 6 or 7 knots would be ideal. Got to be careful. It's quite extreme. If the wind's going to come up, you know, you're going to have to make some changes, and hopefully you can do it on the beat. But you know, getting the crew over the side by powering up the whole sail plan, front and back, is very important. And that develops just a little bit of helm. And as the helm comes up, you just got to hike against it. That's the key thing, right, Markus?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I also agree on that is one of the main goals, to get the crew drop down. But just a little heads up there. If the crew is out and you struggle to maintain the heeling, you have to be careful that this is not ending up all in a sudden going 5 or 6 degrees lower, you have the feeling you want to power the boat up. That needs really sensible steering or behavior. I mean, it's not an option to go 5 degrees lower just to keep the crew out. Then you have to react and get the crew in, or maybe if you're just in those crossover areas, it's maybe an idea for teams to, like, both would hike a little bit more, like straight leg hiking. Then you can react a little bit more on a little puff or a little drop in wind. That could be a good idea in a very certain area, so you don't run the risk of going too deep if the crew is out. But this is just a small crossover.
It also seems like, you know, watching both of you sail in this lighter stuff, the other thing, you guys are pushing far forward, right, in this lighter air, especially the crews. Or even if you're over the side, you're as far forward as you can be, or you're leaning forward to help get the boat to sit right in light air, right? Get the back end out.
Yeah. What I'm trying to do is, as long as I'm sitting on the deck and there's no chance to drop down for hiking, I would sit at just behind the shrouds on the deck. I try to go as far forward as I can there. If it's even lighter, you can consider lying on the foredeck as a crew. And then if it comes to hiking, yes, if it's very light, I would try to use the most forward cleat for your hiking strap. That just puts the bow of the boat, the leeward chine, a little bit more in the water and gives a little bit more feeling for the boat, and a little bit of helm.
Yeah, good point, Alan. If the crew comes up out of the mini hike into the boat and not hiking, he's got to move forward in the cockpit all the way as far as he can go. He's leaning with his chest on the deck, you know, in front of the vang track if he can. And the only problem there is sometimes you can't see the compass, so you kind of gotta. But yeah, up and forward. Forward when it's flat, as far as you can, like Markus says. It helps develop a little bit of helm. It pushes the bow down through. That's a good, very good point there.
So before we get to the next part about being overpowered, I just want to remind everybody out there, if you have questions for Eric and Markus, to send them through the chat. The chat room's now open. So this is an interactive discussion. So if anybody has questions, to send them over. So, all right, now we're getting to the fun part. Boat starts getting overpowered. Now we got to get back on its feet. So what are we going to do that? Or what are the goals for this now?
I don't know if it's the fun part, but it depends a little bit on. I think the starboard is quite early overpowered. I personally do like to sail in strong breeze, but you come very early to the point where you feel that the boat is overpowered. That could already happen in 10 knots, 12 knots latest. You're somewhere where you can't hike the heeling out. You just need to start to react on your adjustments. And the first thing I would always try to do is to rake back a little bit. I mean, of course, not if it's just a little gust or a gust coming in there and you think it's disappearing in 1 minute, then not. But if I see this is constant increasing wind, I would rake the mast back. I'm quite aggressive, or I like to be aggressive on using the rake as a factor or main factor for trimming. So this is the most important thing first of all. Then of course we want to then very soon have a very tight outhole, like a very tight as it can be. So the mainsail should be really flatten out in the bottom, and then tightening the shrouds, having always in mind that you need to adjust both, like upper and lowers, because a big effect on the sail shape of the main is the bending, how it's bending sideways. And if you only tighten the upper shrouds a lot, then you might end up in the mast being too straight, or maybe even falling to leeward at spreader height, and then you are creating even more power in the mainsail. That's something you don't want to do. So always be aware, if you tighten the uppers, tighten the lowers too. One thing, or how I would do it, or I normally do it, is like one full turn on the upper shroud. Would mean for me tighten the lower shroud one phase, and that is something you would stay in the same bending characteristics if you turn it up and down like this. One important thing, which is a little bit maybe not really used enough by a lot of teams, is the Cunningham. I'm using that also quite aggressive, and I'm a big fan of, like, when the breeze is up 15, 18, using the Cunningham all the way, and before that make sure that your Cunningham system is actually giving you that range. I already saw many Cunningham systems which couldn't have even that way, so they thought they pulled all the max Cunningham, but it was not max Cunningham. So that it's happening a lot in the mainsail. It's flattening out, and that helps to maintain the sail flat and nice. We had the rake already. And then set up the check stay, so your profile of the main is looking nice, not too deep and not collapsing, but don't put it too much. You just want to control it basically, and then work on the upper backstay to depower the boat. I mean, you pulling that, you open up the top of the main dramatically, you depower where you want to depower in the top of the main. So it's quite useful to use the upper backstay in gusts, so you can go forward and not the boat wants to turn up and you have to pull the tiller against it. And one last thing, always be aware of the heeling angle. If you are ending up having a little bit too much heeling angle, you could think that is too much power in the boat, but it's just the heeling which is creating more weather helm. So be aware to have the right heeling angle and then adjust the other settings.
So yeah, I like Markus's comment about the heel angle, because you have to be able to sail the boat on the telltales in the breeze. You want to watch the angle of heel, but basically if you have to sail inside the jib so much to keep the boat flat that the jib's not really pulling, then your boat's got too much power. You know, you can feather a little bit in the waves, but one thing I like to do is sail on the telltales and feel how the boat is set up. And if I've got too much helm, my outhaul's out, my Cunningham's as hard as I can pull it, I'm playing the upper backstay a little bit, and I still can't keep the boat under control, that's when I feel I got to start. I've got either one of two things wrong. I either got the rake is too far forward or my shrouds are too loose. So if I'm going a straight line, big puff comes on, I'm tuning, I can let the rake back. Okay, I think that's the right thing to do, but I still can't put the bow down and go fast, and I've just pulled, I'm with Markus too on that Cunningham. Cunningham's important. The slug is almost always down at the gooseneck, in any condition. It might be up an inch or two, but the slug's down, and then get that clue, that Cunningham grommet all the way down as hard as you can. And if I'm in that and I still can't sail on the telltales and I'm always feathering and I got a lot of helm, I got to make some other changes. I got to let the rake back. I've got to tighten the shrouds. I'll put some turns on the shrouds. We got to flatten the main. We got to open it up. We got to let the boat be able to run through the waves.
So one of the questions we got in the chat, and maybe Markus, you can touch on this, is what is the range of the rake? So you're saying we set in light air, we pull it forward. In heavy air, we let it back. So from base, how much are you moving it each way? What is your range of movement?
That's a good question. It's a little bit hard to answer because it is actually quite different on the different boat generations now. Like if we talk about the new generation of boats, for me, a base setting on the rake would be 95, 96, somewhere there. And then it depends how aggressive the teams are playing it. If you ask me, I would go back to 98 if I'm raked back all the way, and but not much more forward than 94. That would be my range, 94 to 98 on a new generation boat. But then talking about an old folly, for example, an older folly, you would probably use something between 92 and 96. So it's really depending on the boat you have, and that is where the settings are depending on. So you can't answer it in general.
Got it. But the range could be 3 centimeters in total from your base setting, something like that.
Yeah, a little bit more, like at least 4 or 5 centimeters is a range.
Okay. Got it. Okay. So the last part before we get to the couple videos that we have here, and Eric, you talked about balance. So we have 2 photos of you sailing here. Just talk us through a little bit about what you see here.
Yeah. One point I wanted to make on the rake, which is kind of more of a light air setting. If you're struggling to figure out what rake the boat should be at, I don't really, for a long time with this new boat, I didn't know the number. There were a couple marks on my line, on my rake adjustment line, but in light air, we're trying to get the crew over the side. We're trying to power the boat up. We need the top telltale to stall. Both these photos, it's a little more wind and you can see the top telltale flowing, but in a little lighter air, a good rule of thumb on the rake is pull the rake forward so that you can stall the top telltale when in other words, the main's over trimmed when the boom is on the deck. When it's block to block, the main is over trimmed, and then you ease it up just a little bit from there, maybe 3-4 inches off the deck, like in these pictures. And that's a good rake setting. Some people are scared to adjust the rake, and to be honest, a lot of people for a lot of years had great success never moving the rake. There was a time there when I sailed the boats and the guys, the forestay went through the deck at the bow and there was a staymaster there and it was just hooked in the bow and they just found a nice happy number and they never adjusted it. And maybe that's your style, but I'm with Markus. I prefer to play it, in areas there's about a 3-4 centimeter range, but just be a little careful. Like Markus said, the old boats, the bow was higher, so the rake number is a little less, just because Markus says use 96. If you've got an early 8000 series Foley, it's not going to work in light air, So, I guess my point is, don't be afraid to try some new things and what's most important is how the boat feels, how it goes through the water, and how you're going against your tuning partner there. So we want to balance the boat. You know, we don't want to have too much power. You can see on the photo on the left here, you can see the tiller, maybe you can point at the tiller, Alan, and you see how much, you know, that's probably, you know, 8 to 12 degrees of rudder angle, and it's just too much there. That's actually a photo of me in Miami, and the boat's got too much power. I'm trying to put the bow down. I'm trying to sail on the telltales, and there's too much rudder angle. You know, the Star has quite a big rudder. We know we want it to be nice and balanced, so the main is a little too full. You know, and it's quite subtle here. We're looking at these pictures, and the main is a little too full in the bottom, got a little too much return. And whereas on the right, we've kind of straightened it out a little bit. We've made some subtle changes. And now we're sailing with virtually no rudder angle, just enough to get the boat tracking properly. You know, we're hiking hard against it. We flatten it out. And what do you see there, Marcus? What could we do better, man? I need some help there in that picture on the left, clearly.
I know you need my help, Eric. That's not a problem. I appreciate to help you. No, but it's the same thing I'm seeing. The main difference for me would be the setting of the mainsail in the lower part. So outhold to loose, or maybe, I don't know, maybe it's also a little bit more check stay, but it's hard to judge from here. But for sure, looking at the rudder angle, left picture is too much. That's what I'm thinking. If that is a constant tiller position, then it's too much. You don't want to have it neutral. I mean, then something is wrong too. If you have a neutral starboard, something is wrong, because then you're not fast. I can tell you that for sure. So you probably want to have something, if you want to make the work and measure it, you want to have something between 3 and 5 degrees of rudder angle. That is something you're looking for, because of the shape of the boat underwater. If you have a little bit of rudder angle, where the helm, it's working like a trim tab down below, and that is something you're looking for in a boat like a starboat.
Yeah, the top of the rudder is like a trim tab, and just the bottom part under the skeg is what's lifting. And we need the boat to track. We want the boat to do the work. In other words, we want to drive it, but if we got to, you know, if we have to drive the boat a lot, we don't have it set up right. We don't have it balanced. We want it to cruise along, kind of doing 95% of the work, you know, and we're just making small adjustments, and preferably not, we're only making an adjustment to either so the boat doesn't pound in the waves, right? Or B, there's some kind of change. There's a wind shift or a pressure wind shift, and then we can adjust the sails so that the boat takes its correct attitude very quickly, and we don't have to work hard at it.
I was expecting Marcus just to tell you to hike harder.
That's usually the problem.
That is something we could, of course, agree on. That's not any doubt about that.
Yeah.
But
all right, so so we got a couple of videos here, actually, of you, Marcus, sailing. I think this is in Miami last winter. Does that sound right?
Yeah, it's in February.
Yeah. So this one is from behind you guys, and then the other one is from the side. So why don't you talk us through a little bit here on this video, and I'll run it a couple times.
Yeah. So I mean, I think this video shows quite good. If you have the setup right, and you feel the boat is free, is moving, you can steer it well, and you don't have to work against the boat. That's something expression I like to say. If you have to fight against the boat because the boat wants to do something else than you want to do, then something is wrong. And I don't know if everybody can see this, but for me, this boat is really moving smooth. Of course, there are short, steep waves. This is Miami, but still the boat, it's just moving forward. It's not like being hauled up or wants to shoot in the wind or head up all the time. It's just going forward, and the main looks nice and deep power, just on the border of collapsing. Well, it's not collapsing, only in the top, but it's very flat and nice. Open jib, very flat in the bottom, a little bit twisted. So it is a good setup, and you can find it. You just need to look for it and try and work on that. So it's a J2 we're using here, which is a great jib for these conditions, what I think. It's a little bit more stiff for claws. It's flattened out a little bit compared to the all-round jibs. And that helps also in these conditions to move forward. I don't know,
Yeah,
Eric.
boat-
I mean,
the boat looks good.
On
It's-
that
it's-
boat too, huh?
What's that?
You would like to sit on that boat too, sailing it in these conditions, no?
I would, man. I'm missing it badly. But to me, the boat, what I call it, it's my crew and I, we say it's charging forward through the waves. You know, the waves, like you said, Miami's quite shallow. The waves get short and steep, but the boat doesn't just pound and stop. It sails over and through the waves and then keeps going.
Maybe we go to the next video, and then we can see what Eric means, I think.
Yep, here we go.
Keep going, Eric.
Yeah, nice. So here we go. We're right at max heel there. Sometimes we heel the boat a little bit so that it doesn't pound as much. That's the most critical thing when the waves are big, you know, but it's the boat's charging forward, and you can see where the head sometimes of the main is releasing. You know, just as the helm gets too much, the head goes inside out and releases the helm so that he's not fighting it, you know. The boat wants to charge, doesn't want to pound. That's the worst thing. Any flat bottom boat, you know, you sail, Alan, I know, sails a lot of lightnings. He knows about pounding going upwind. So these boats have a little more rocker and they go, but you can see how far down the Cunningham eye is. You can see he's got the lower check stay just firm so that the bottom of the main doesn't invert, because that's where the power is coming from. And he's got his hand on the upper backstay. And when a big puff comes on, it needs more twist. He'll pull the upper backstay on hard, open the top of the main up more, releases the helm. And then important too, if the puff goes away, if it's a puffy day, he'll ease it back off and get the helm back. And you can see the telltales are just barely lifting. So he's sailing on the telltales there. He's just inside them a little bit, but he's not got the boat so jammed up that it's up in the wind. He's able to sail on the telltales. And if you can't do that without heeling over too much, you got to flatten more. It's important in the breeze that the main is very flat in the top. When it's light air on a boat like a Star with a big main and a small jib, you know, the main does 75, 80% of the work. Well, when it gets windy, the main's just tipping you over, and that switches, the ratio switches, and the jib becomes the main driving force in the boat and the bottom of the main. So it's important to trim the jib properly and be able to sail on the jib, because that's, like I said, that's suddenly now become, you know, 70, 80% of your driving force. The main is just trying to balance the boat, keep it going in a straight line, and you need the head to be open so that it doesn't just flip the boat over and give you too much helm. And that's
I completely agree on that, Eric. I mean, you want to sail on the jib, and you want to have the mainsail just keeping the profile in the conditions we are here. You don't want too much power in the main. You just try to keep the profile so it's not collapsing, and then drive it on the jib. One thing, talking about keeping the profile in the main, is you could consider at a certain point to let the jib card out a little bit, like between 2 to 3 centimeters, maybe maximum 5. It's really windy. So then you can prevent too much back winding in the mainsail, and open that a little bit up, the slot there, so the jib is not giving too much bad air in the main.
Yeah, this is a nice setup. You guys are going. Did you guys win this lineup, Marcus? Looks like you were sailing against all
we
did. Yeah,
we did.
All right, nice.
And I think the key is that both sails are still working, even though it's windy, right? I mean, it's not like the main is luffing or inside the jib. I mean, you figured out how to set the boat up so both sails still function. I think that's the big takeaway, right?
If one sail would collapse, either one, you're slow. I mean, if the main starts to collapse because you depower this too much, you will stop the boat immediately with that.
Right. Okay. Eric, just take us through the last little bit here as we wrap up the upwind portion here. Your final notes here.
I'm not sure if Eric should talk about that. Hike hard. Is that something?
Yeah, maybe you should talk about that.
So we tried to find a picture of Eric where he's hiking hard, but we couldn't. So we better took one of another guy here. No, but seriously, I mean, hike hard is just a little joking, but hike hard, it's true. I mean, the more you can hike, the more you can put momentum against the sail area or your setup, the more you go forward. It's a fact, and it's nothing to argue about. I mean, you can only say, well, I can't hike that much. That's how it is, but then you have to accept it. But you couldn't, I mean, having the if you have the wrong setup and you think you can hike it out is also not working. But first of all, hike hard, and then try to get the setup also right. Of course, we were speaking about that, and both together will put you forward, or let you move forward and be faster than the other guys. And saying that, always be aware of what's happening. I mean, is the wind increasing before the race, or is the wind dropping when we line up here? And if it does, what do we need to do? I mean, what are the parameters we want to change and can change immediately, so we can react in the best way to establish always our wished setup to be maximum fast forward when it's breezy, or powered up in light. So you just have to be there and always work on it.
Yeah, work together with your crew. And kind of that last point we have there, I'll just address that for a second. Anticipate your actual conditions. And what we mean by that is, you know, you've always got to listen to what the helm is telling you and what the boat motion is. The crew has a good feeling when he goes on over the side. He can feel if the boat's charging forward, if the boat's pounding too much, or he's struggling to stay out over the side, out of the waves. So, you know, we need more power. But the helm is really telling you what to do. You know, you'd love to have that just pin the tiller in one spot, and as the wind comes, you just adjust the sails, the power of the boat, so that you don't have to change anything. So it's better to be looking upwind. Okay, here comes a big puff. My hand's on the upper backstay. Just as the puff is hitting and the helm starts to load up, you're pulling on the backstay, so the heel angle stays the same, the rudder angle stays the same, and the boat keeps its same attitude. Rather than the puff hits, the boat lays over, the helm loads up, the bow goes up into the wind. Oh, now I got to change something. So then you change the backstay, and then you go back on it, and now you got to re-accelerate. So, you know, you're making little subtle changes for changing wind strength and conditions. You know, we don't want to overdo it, because the boat, you know, that's what we keep talking about. Get the boat to do the work. It kind of rolls along on itself. You make a small change here and there, but then you can get your head out of the boat a little bit more and see where we're going on the race course. You know, we want the boat to roll along almost all the time, and we got to be fast. We got to hold our lane. There's times where, like, say, off the starting line, or somebody leavows you and you got to keep going, where all you can focus on is speed, and you give it that little extra hike. But most of the time you want the boat to be rolling along, because it's important to be fast, but it's equally as important, in some conditions more important, to go the correct way. You know, so that's the beauty of it. We talked about two-boat testing and tuning. And there is such thing as being fast in a straight line and tuning, and not being so fast on the race course. So if you have a nice practice day with somebody, you know, make sure you incorporate a little bit of racing into it too. Okay, we can focus really hard and be fast, but in the dynamic situation of racing, where at times we want to sail a little faster, sometimes we got to sail a little high and slow to save our lane, to keep going the right way, that the boat's got to be easy to do that. So, you know, the tuning is hard work. It's arduous. I really enjoy it. I like doing that, but it's about the racing. We want to get the result on the race course. So make sure you incorporate a little bit of that in your day, so you haven't set the boat up so critical that you can't race.
Very true, Eric. I mean, very, very good to bring up the point, and I don't have to add anything. It's very true. Stay sharp, do tuning, do racing, and then do the actual regattas.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you guys keep some good notes after, which we don't need to delve into, but just making sure you write your settings down.
I mean, for sure, it always, I mean, I'm doing that, and I would suggest it to anybody out there. I mean, especially if there are some sailors, like, I call them weekend sailors. I don't mean it mean, but if some teams are able to do a couple of weekends a year and don't have too much time which they can put into it, the more important is it to have those notes or to do those notes, because once you found a good setting, you can repeat it. And sometimes I talk to sailors and they've been fast in a regatta before, and then they come to me and ask me, well, something is wrong. Now, last regatta we were very fast, and now we're super slow. And I said, okay, what's the setup? What did you change? And most of the times they don't know. And if you track it, you would know.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, now we'll go to the other half of the race. You know, some people's favorite, some people's not favorite part of the race, going downwind.
Is that you, Alan? Yeah,
it is not me. It's something I would do, but it's not me, luckily. I think if it was me, the mast would probably be broken, or I would be behind the boat having fallen off by now. So no, that's not me. That's usually what I look like when I leave the dock, though. That's my biggest fear still, is getting off the dock. So, no.
Yeah, it's kind of funny picture. I mean, this goes wrong, but it happens. I mean, what the fuck? Don't care about it.
Exactly. Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, some of the things downwind that you guys, just in a general sense, look at before we talk to, you know, condition specific, but just generalization downwind tuning partners and what you guys look at.
Yeah, we a lot of times you know, some people tend to sail upwind and do train and set the boat up and work really hard, and then we just kind of coast downwind and not really train downwind. And in reality, the biggest gains and losses are made downwind around the race course. So it's good, you know, you do some training, go upwind for a bit with your tuning partner, make some changes, turn downwind, take a little break, get close to each other, talk about what you saw upwind. Hey, I think you're a little faster. Oh, I'm struggling in the light. I can't get my crew over. Oh, the right side's favored, the left side. You know, if you open that dialogue with your tuning partner, be very good. So, you know, and then, you know, get a little drink, set the boats up downwind. You know, we like this position right here. We're not on, you know, either boat's wind. We're not trying to go over the guy or under the guy. Everybody has clear air, you know, very similar to upwind, you know. So we start with, you know, rig position, then it's pole height, then it's what angle of heel we want for the conditions, you know, how we fly the jib for that specific situation that day. And probably the biggest thing is we have marks, very important, repeatable marks, you know, starting with the backstay for the rig position, how much vang tension we have, and super important is the jib halyard and the tack line, because we like to get the jib flying just right. So we got to have repeatable marks on all these settings. You know, the vang is kind of a floating thing compared to the tension. So we really need to have something we can easily see. I have one on the, I have a little scale along the boom. If you can point to that, Alan, just by the above the vang track. Yep, I put a scale there, you know, 1 to 10 or something. And then there's a little mark on my vang line as that moves along that track. So when I'm feeling good, I take a look at that. Oh, it's at 2 when I'm, you know, in a puff or something like that. So that's our starting point. That's the basics we got to have just to start going downwind. And now we'll, what have you got to add to that, Markus?
Yeah, not much. I mean, you covered it all up. I mean, yeah, having marks is very important. I mean, would you have a mark on your quick halyard up on the downwind, Alan? Do you have a mark installed there already? Yeah, that's good. We can't hear you. I think your mic is off, Alan.
Alan, you muted yourself, man. Who are you talking to?
Talking to myself.
There you go.
It's like when I sail on the boat too. I'm talking to myself probably. But
yeah, but having marked is good, eh?
To me, the biggest mark that's important, Markus, is the one on the backstay, because it seems, you know, having your max forward is critical so you don't blow the rig out of the boat, but also knowing, you know, your heavy air, where you're going to stop, and at least having a gauge, because it seems like it's something you adjust a fair amount, right? I mean, if the bow starts going down, you might pull more on to get the rig back a little bit to get the boat under control, but at least you have a gauge of where you are. If there's no marks, you're kind of just flying blind, it seems like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one thing. And even if you would judge the mast forward by the hole in the deck, once it comes up to the jibe, I mean, how would you know how far you pull the leeward backstay? Well, if you don't have a mark there, you're always in the middle of nowhere because you don't know how much to pull and where to set it up. So it is super important. And for me, it's not possible to sail the star without marks on the backstay.
It's actually amazing how many people sail without them. I mean, if you look in the boat park, I bet more than half of them don't have marks on them. So.
Yeah, that's something I can't understand. I think it's just too much work. You always have to think about it. Yeah. So take stuff away which you don't need to think about. If you have the marks and you want to go for the mark, you just do it on the downwind. That's fine. I mean,
yeah, it's hard enough, you know, racing with other guys. And if you got to spend that extra time looking up at the mast and seeing where it is and stuff like that, it's better to just go to the mark and then start racing again, trim the sails. And, you know, here we have a little, a shot going downwind in light air.
Yeah.
You know, we have the mast max forward. In other words, the mast is laying against the front of the partners. This is my boat, and I actually have so that the butt can slide. The butt slides aft on my boat, probably 4 to 5 inches. You know, we can see the tip of the mast is almost over the bow. It's definitely, you know, in line with the bow. That's our max power setting there.
That's a quite good setup. I like that, Eric. Having the top of the mast on the bow, or like in a line with the bow. That's kind of what I'm looking for in light air too. Yeah,
that's good. And then you know, there's enough wind that we're heeling about to weather. The crew's forward. You know, we can see that that we're maximizing the water line in the front. We can see the knuckle is just in the water. If we had a little bit more heel, the transom would probably just be in the water too. But we've pulled a lot of it on the leeward side out. So we're trying to, you know, find our mode here and figure out just how we want to set the boat up on the little details. But we've gotten the big ones correct. We've got our marks. We've gone forward. Heel in the boat. We've got the pole tip up, and then here we've got.
Now, hold on. One thing to add on the other one. Just always be aware of your vang tension. I mean, once you set up the mast, nothing will happen basically. If the wind is not changing on the downwind, it will stay there. But the thing which needs to be adjusted, it's the vang, even if it's just 1 knot difference or something, or you want to play a little bit, in which direction you feel better, a little bit tighter, a little bit looser, but just check it. And it's a good option for the crew if he's standing there. He can look up the mainsail, and like I would suggest or recommend a base setting. What you're looking for is the top batten, like kind of parallel to the boom. That is something you can always start from, and then you go loose or tighter from there and check what happens to your speed.
Got it. Well, we have 2 boats here on a training day. I don't think either of them are you guys, but 2 different setups side by side here. So I think, Markus, you had a pretty good explanation of some of this yesterday of what you saw and the different moding here.
Yeah. I mean, basically, me and Eric, we were talking about this picture, and I was not so happy because Eric said there's one setup wrong and one is right. And I mean, he had good insights because I don't know if he was either the coach or on one of the boats, and he knew what of those settings were faster. So if you have that information, of course, it's easy. But I was arguing a little bit like, for me, there's not really a wrong or right in the style how you sail downwind. For example, if you take the leeward boat here, or the boat in front on the picture, you see the boom quite far out. You have a tight vang. So that is something that is a mode you can use. I mean, that's a mode where you go low and maybe a little bit slower, but you can really squeeze the deepness. And if you look at the other boat, the main sheet is a little bit tighter, the vang is open, that gives you more way to drive, maybe to speed it up a little bit. And in the end, maybe both styles would work. If they both go in their own mode, they might ending up in the same position at the leeward gate again. The thing which is not working, if they go the same course, the setups can't be both right. That is something you have to be aware of, but both setups can work. And then if you want to go for the low mode, I would suggest to have a little bit more tension on the luff of the jib, And if you like the more the fast forward or a little bit faster mode, 2 to 3 degrees higher, I would always try to fly the jib a little bit like a spinnaker. So the biggest bend in the loft would be in the top third of the jib.
Right. And
Yeah.
so I think the next photo is these two boats again, but now they've changed modes a little bit, right?
Yeah, as it turned out that day, there were nice waves to ride, and it was faster to have the head open, so the boat was a little more forgiving. You know, I think that the thing we take away from this, you know, to kind of do a quick summary is, in flatter water, we tend to just sail lower. If the main goes out, then the vang has to come on. You know, if the main's all the way out and the you know, it's just windy enough that, you know, it gets all the way to the end of the, you know, the vang track, so you're pretty far out on the main, then you're going to have more vang. And then when there's waves and we have to come up to get some speed and then catch the wave and bear away, then the head of the main is going through a much wider range of apparent wind angles, so the boom comes in and the vang goes off. And that's what we're trying to find. We're trying to find that balance and figure out exactly what we need for the conditions of the day, you know. But in general, that's how it works. More power is rig forward, more power to go low is vang on, more open to open up the steering to ride the waves is main sheet in, and more twist with the vang off. But like we say here, be careful when it's really, really light. You know, our last point here, make sure the vang's not completely loose. It should just be snug. Maybe the boom bounces just a touch, but we don't want the puff to hit and the boom just to ride up and just open the main and just take our foot off the gas. You know, if it's really light and we want it to just be snug.
It doesn't give you any momentum or power. If you imagine the vang would be off, or like the rope broke, that you wouldn't get any power out of it. So that's what we want to say is here, that yes, it can be loose, but it needs to stop at a certain point. So it needs to have a limit, and that is important. Don't ease it off all the way, or make sure it's maybe way too long and you can't even tighten it. That is something to look at too.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's our light air waves.
So I think we have a good video here of you sailing here in Miami.
Yeah, so here we've put a little bit of it into practice, hopefully. This is us going downwind. It's sailing. It's 8 to 10, 11 knots. You know, we've still got the rig way forward. The boat's got the boom in just a little bit of vang off. It's kind of doing its thing, rolling. The crew's forward. We can see the knuckles in the water. We can see the leeward side of the hull in the aft section is out. So that's reducing drag. You know, we're trying to just be able to sail the boat to the waves. What's going on with our video here, Alan?
It's going.
Crew's still in front of the mast, poles reasonably high so that we can heel the boat to weather. Here, see how the knuckle's just in the water, and we're almost, you know, we want to keep the bow in so it gets on the wave. There's a little pump to keep it on the wave. Crew is still forward, but we're keeping an eye on it because it's getting a little windier. I think in a second here, we've actually got to come back because we like the bow to be in, but we don't want it to bury too far. We all know about that. Here, my crew, he's a good surfer too. He knows how to go forward just a little bit to keep the boat on the wave. Look, we've got the bow buried. Now we're like, oh, be careful. All right, crew comes aft, not too far, and then right back forward when it pows on. Because, you know, we've got a lot of volume in the front of the boat. We want to sink that onto the wave. So he stays forward. That's a nice, pretty nice movement there, huh? Is that how you would do it, Markus?
Yeah, I kind of like it. You always have to like act like a team and know each other a little bit, but for sure you need to balance the boat as a crew, move forward, backward a little bit. Also try together with the helm to maintain or maybe increase a little bit rolling momentum by very small movements. But if you do them together, you could still have an effect. But for sure, you always need to, heads up on the downwind. I mean, look around, look for the waves, look for the wind, and then have a good teamwork in both directions. Forward, backwards is the crew, and the sideway rolling should be skipper and crew. But Eric, you should think about having a lever to leeward for your shrouds. That's too much in the main. You can't do that, Eric.
All right, I have one, but the shrouds are so loose. We haven't ever really played with letting it off too much. In the really light stuff, we do.
Yeah. I kind of like it to release it to leeward. It just makes the main look a little bit nicer. But anyway, I like this video, and in these conditions, it's so critical to jump on a wave, and that requires the good crew work. First of all, good setting in the boat, but then the good crew work together to jump on the wave and then stay on it as long as you can, and leave it early enough so you have speed to catch the next one. So this is the most challenging conditions for me to sail downwind, if you're just about to get the wave or not get it.
Yeah, this is nice condition. What do you see there, Alan? You like
I was just say, it seems like to me from my learning of this and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, it's easy to get caught too low, too long though, right? And the boat slows down, or even if the main is open at the top, you end up like getting blown to windward and sideways a little bit if you're not careful. So, I mean, I think you see in this video, you're pretty good at, you get low on a wave and then you come back up pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's what you have to do.
A lot of boats get stuck low. Yeah.
Once you have to speed, you have to maintain it and keep it up to be able to catch the next wave. Otherwise, you end up losing too many waves, Eric, right?
Yeah. You definitely, you'd love to have that little roll just as the wave as you're catching the wave, that helps steer the boat down, and you follow the wave low, and then, you might, just before you think you're going to get off of it, you lean in a little bit, maybe trim the main and help the boat flatten out and ride back up. So we're gonna try and steer the boat with our weight, and we're gonna be not too afraid to be a little bit aggressive, because the only way we go faster is by surfing on a wave. The boats are all pretty much going the same speed. So what's the most important thing is when you can catch waves, that you catch them. And you got to main speed, and you don't dray the bow like that. See right there, that's a nice job. Payson stayed back, and the knuckles stayed the same, but we didn't take a big wave over the bow and fill the boat up with water. And the boat stops too, So that's what's important in that condition right there.
Got it.
Ride the waves.
Let's talk about when it's a little bit windier. We got a photo here of a little bit breezier on, but what are some of the things that you guys are looking for here when it's windier? Part of it must be the backstay, I would assume, is pretty key to this, right?
Yeah, I mean, the mast forward position should then, we're talking like 18 plus or something. And then depending a little bit on the wave conditions you find then, but you have to be careful that you don't end up crashing the bow or sinking the bow in every second wave, and then putting the cockpit full of water, which makes it even worse then. So if you get into the situation where you feel the boat is too much loaded up on the bow and is not able to drive the boat because it's just going into the waves, that is clear sign for getting the mast more back. And there should be a second or third mark where you can go step by step more back. But for sure, there's too much pressure on the bow. The helm is not really able to steer it because the bow is loaded up all the time. Get the mast back. That will make the boat so much more free and much easier to drive. Second thing, weight aft. I mean, of course, because the bow is loaded up more and if it's breezy, so the crew is coming aft. Sometimes even I did that. I don't know if you ever tried it or experienced it, but I had situations and wave conditions where both of us were sitting behind the backstay. So that is something which might occur, normally not. Then try always to maintain the natural rolling of the boat. Don't overdo it. I mean, it can get risky putting the pole in the water, but you have to roll the boat, even if it's windy. You can't just have it flat. That is slow. And a good parameter for adjusting that rolling is the wang. I mean, if you start to ease it, the boat will start to roll. And then there comes the point where that is maybe too much rolling, then you start to tighten it. So what I sometimes do is, or when it's conditions for that, I have the Vang in the hand when I'm sitting there as a crew, and I can always adjust it. If I feel the breeze is coming in or it's getting critical, you pull it a little bit, you get control, and then you feel now it's too much control, the boat is not moving, you ease it a little bit. Of course, also communicating then with the skipper and calling the gusts is very important in my opinion, and get the jib as high as you can so you have minimized the risk of putting the pole in the water.
Yeah, you can see on this photo that the tip of the mast is no longer over the bow. If you drew a line straight down, it would probably be, you know, kind of the middle of the cockpit or something like that. Obviously, it's some pretty big waves because the crew is back in the boat. It's not on the foredeck anymore. And we all know when it's 15 knots or something like that, 18 knots, the star can get a little squirrely downwind, and to, you know, control it, we have to pull the Vang on pretty firm. And kind of my kind of balance is, you know, if I feel that I'm pulling a lot of Vang on just to control the boat and to keep the bow out, then my mast is too far forward. You know, I got to pull it back a little bit. I've got to ease the Vang a little bit so that, you know, there's twist in the top of the sail and the boat can kind of naturally do its thing, you know. And like Markus said, it's hard to, you have to play the Vang. You got to know the conditions. I think, Markus, remember we did that Europeans last year in Lake Garda. On the runs, it was like 10 to 20 knots. So in 10 knots, you were kind of sitting there going, man, I need some power. And a couple times, you know, we let the mast forward and we're all powered up. Oh, here comes the putt. Oh, now it's blowing 20 knots and we're kind of flat water, but the Vang's on so hard because we try to get the rig back. Oh, no, it's not coming back. It's just staying there. So we had to pull the Vang on really hard and just kind of survive in the puffs. And, you know, that's when it's good to anticipate it. But, you know,
yeah, maybe a little bit too much even. That was hard work.
Yeah.
Changing so fast. I mean, as you say, getting mast forward, backwards, Vang on.
Oh, scary. Yeah.
But it's good to be ahead of that game. I mean, as you say, once the gust is in, not many crews can pull the mast back. I mean,
no. So, yeah.
So it's better to pull it back before and then ease it if you're happy.
Yeah. So more power with the rig forward. If we've got to control the rig too much, the boat with the Vang on really hard and the boat's just kind of jammed up and not flowing along, mast has got to come back. You know, another sign if the bow is burying too much. Rig forward is pushing the bow down, okay? So we bring the mast back. We've got like 3 marks on our backstay. You know, we've got a max forward. We've got, you know, about a foot from there and then about another foot. So those are our 3 settings, so that the boat can maintain its natural rolling downwind so we can catch the waves. Because obviously when the breeze comes up, there's more waves. And if we get on waves and string them together naturally, then we're gonna make a lot of gains. We're gonna be going fast. So that's the goal.
Got it. Well, it seems like one thing that we don't do as much anymore. Hold on here. Sorry about that. But that we do still do a little bit of reaching, right? I mean, it can happen. So I don't know, is this from Bacardi this year potentially?
Yeah, this is our superstar team of Matus Kuznerovic and Bruno Prada, reigning world champions and Bacardi Cup champions. We had the last day in Miami, was really windy, nice, you know, 25 knots. And it's pretty nice now that the class, when it's good reaching conditions and we can have fun reaching, they send us on the triangles. And we used to do it quite a lot more, and we were very specialized. Our boats had different options that helped us out on the reaches. Here it freed up a little bit, and we were reaching down I think the second reach. You can see how windy it is because here's Markus's situation where you can see Bruno is sitting behind the backstays. Matus is all the way in the back of the cockpit, and Bruno's just in front of him because the bow, it was breezy, huh, Markus? There was some waves, and we were paying attention, huh?
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was a great race.
It was great. But so we were back. So, but we want the boat to be powerful, you know, so the rig does go forward so that the jib flies, you know, the headstay gets loose and it flies out in front of the boat. but you can see how far in his main is and how loose the vang is, you know, how much twist he has. So the jib's quite high, it's out in front of the boat, it's pulling nicely. You know, we often see this in the starboat on reaching where we're in between we're kind of underpowered. So we sail the boat a little bit hot for maybe half the reach so that the jib stays full and we can stay on a plane. And then as soon as we have some nice breeze and we can bear away to that mark with the pole up, then we put the pole up. So we get a lot more power out of the boat. Rig goes forward even a little bit more. You know, that's an often thing we do on reaching. Because, you know, maybe in the old days we had barber haulers and we had ways to the jib halyard was hooked into the rake. And when we let the rig forward on a tight reach, we could pull the rake forward and would pull the jib halyard up at the same time to keep the forestay tight enough. You know, since we don't do that much anymore, we don't really have that setup. But, you know, the important thing, heavy air reaching, is that the boat is planing all the time. It doesn't really matter the angle, but it'll plane with the jib up, you know, trimmed on a little bit at a tighter angle. And then as soon as we can, we put the pole up and we get that extra power and we keep the boat planing.
I think we have a good video here of Markus doing some reaching here. This is also
a little more, yeah, a little tighter reaching. Yeah,
a little tighter, but we got a good video here. It's something.
Yeah, it's not that tight. It's like on the low side, actually. It's not a super high angle, but it's like around 20, 22 knots. Actually, great fun to do that in a place like Miami, nice and warm, nice waves. And it's, as Eric said, it's about keep the boat planning. I mean, maybe you have to adjust your angle. Maybe you have to pump the sails every now and then. What I actually also like to do on those reaching courses, I mean, if I have the feeling we need to power up, I would have in one hand, I would have the jib sheet, and in the other hand, I would have the vang. And if I feel, okay, the power is fading, I trim in the vang, I tighten it, so you have more power in the main. Once it comes to the situation where the boat maybe is heeling over too much, you're overpowered, you can't get it forward, I'm easing the vang. So that is something you can be really active on the reaches with the vang.
And
yeah,
you
I
know,
agree.
Making sure the jib cars are all the way down and all those things that seem basic, but just doesn't seem to happen sometimes, right?
Yeah, and yeah, for sure. I mean, the setup needs to be, jib is not super important. I think the jib should be, if anything, a little bit over trimmed because of changes maybe in speed and angle. It's kind of hard to have it always on the right setup. So if anything, over trimmed, because if you lose the jib, actually it will end up in not a really spin out, but the disbalance of the boat will all in a sudden come in there, and then there might be the situation where the boat wants to come up very fast because the skipper or the helm didn't expect the loss of pressure on the bow.
Got it. And
So,
talking about steering, we talked a little bit yesterday about whether to have the tiller up like that or down, or what you guys think about that.
that's Eric to answer, I think. I mean, I don't know. I think it happens if you move back.
Yeah, it's better. I like steering like Jürgen is right now, with hand on the tiller. You know, I don't like to lift it up either too much. It's nice, nice day there in Miami. Look, you guys are back in the boat a little bit. So if you're struggling to get the boat on the plane, you're not really max height here because we're a little bit broader.
Yeah.
But
it's not a tight reach.
Yeah, but it's looser enough that it's tight enough that you don't have the pole up, you know.
Yeah.
Right on the edge there. That's what we're talking about. A lot of times we sail this angle. If it gets a little lighter, we can still plane. We got to put the bow up, and then we're looking for that opportunity to put up the pole and get the bow down. Obviously, the jib becomes much more efficient when it's to weather with the pole up, and we can fly it usually a little tighter than we think, and get the boat planing. Keep it planing. Plane. Ooh, what a nice day there, man. I wish we were there now doing that.
Hopefully
Me too.
Well, and we got this lovely photo here. I know you're putting this one on me too, I think.
Is that you again, Eric? Ellen? Now finally you made it to the water?
I wish it was, you know, but no, it's not.
That's impressive. Look at that. Keel out of the water. You can see the rudder. Rudders
Yeah,
I
have
didn't know you could
max,
do that.
Max angle too. It looks like maybe they've abandoned the tiller, huh? Because the rudder is completely sideways.
Yeah, or it's just they just fell off the boat, which could also happen. But I actually saw something like that in real life. I don't know if it's this boat or this situation, but in that case, I saw the keel was going all the way up to the sun, so it stayed there for 2 or 3 minutes, then decided to turn around again, and everything was up. The rig was all in one piece, sails were good, so they kept on sailing from there.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of, yeah, that is amazing. But we want to encourage anybody out there, this is kind of the end of our presentation, to not be shy to contact us with any questions. You know, this will go up on YouTube at some point, but don't be afraid. There's our email addresses. You know, send us anything you want. We're still not doing a lot of sailing, so we've got time to answer anything. We'll get back to you. And thanks for having us. Nice job, guys. Having fun with you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Thank you, Marcus. And yeah, I think it's safe to say for the three of us that if we had our choice, talking about stars is pretty high on the list. So, you know, don't be bashful about sending us a note.
Yeah, maybe next time,
exactly.
only one add-on. Maybe we can talk about stars next time somewhere at a race or regatta place. I would appreciate that.
Yeah, we'll do the best we can to help with that, right?
No, I know. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Great
And,
seeing you
we'll talk
guys.
to you
Take
soon.
care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good day.
one.